We're back in Nassau again, and today we're going to take a look at a little bit more significant or a little bit more substantial of a wreck. And this is from the last Sean Connery Bond movie, Never Say Never Again. Now, there's a scene here where he and the femme fatale...
How reckless of me. I made you all wet.
Yes, but my martini's still dry. My name's James.
...are scuba diving on the wreck of a freighter tugboat. It's about a 90-foot long boat. Now, it's funny, there's really no premise given for why they're doing this.
What exactly are we going down for?
Sport. And a little fun.
They just are, because they need a setup for the villains to try to assassinate Bond by, this is like one of the most goofy James Bond plots ever, by attaching a radio transmitter to his scuba tank, which calls in a shark with a frickin' radio guidance tracking thing on its fin, and the shark will try to eat Bond. And so Bond tries to escape from this shark, weaving in and out and around this sunken ship. Now, the ship was actually purchased specifically for the film, and it was sunk just off the island here. This is New Providence Island in the Bahamas. One of, actually a lot of ships that have been sunk out here and used as movie prop sets. So this particular one was done by a guy named Stuart Cove, who currently runs one of the main dive centers on Nassau in the Bahamas. And we are going to suit up, take the boat out there, and take a look at the wreck, because it is still a pretty darn easy dive. It's relatively shallow, it's readily accessible, and it's a really cool dive to do, especially when you know the connection to the James Bond film. So, let's suit up, let's get out there and take a look.
Now, if you saw our previous video on diving the Vulcan bomber from Thunderball, another James Bond movie, you may remember that this site and the Thunderball site are extremely close. They're only really a few dozen meters apart. So we dove them both on the same day, and in fact on the same dive. Now, this is a ship that has colloquially come to be known as the Tears of Allah, based on plot of the movie. In reality, this ship, and we'll start by just taking a look down the whole length of it, this was a trawler that was confiscated for being caught drug running between the Bahamas and Miami. And when the film production found it, it was basically rotting away in a dry dock, getting rusty. So they acquired it for, I don't know how much, but presumably next to nothing, brought it out here to an area that they already knew well, because some of the people here had been involved in Thunderball. Of course, Kevin McClory had been involved in Thunderball, and went ahead and sank it in a nice, open, flat, sandy area around, near the reef, not actually on a reef. They sank it, and then they used both live sharks and apparently a dead frozen shark for the scenes in the film. The animal welfare regulations in the movie industry were a bit different back in the 80s. But now that we've seen the length of what remains of the ship, let's take a look at the film. So here at the stern, you can see that hatch at the back. That is where Bond first comes down onto the boat in the film. You can see him here looking through the hatch. That storage box that was originally on the ship is long gone now. There are a lot of elements of this ship that are long gone now, but that's the area of the boat where he starts. He then, of course, sees, oh no, the shark that's chasing him, and he goes through this hole in the side of the boat. That hole, the film crew deliberately put into the side of the boat to make this shot possible. So there's the hole in the ship as it exists today. I think the idea was that would be whatever originally sank the boat, in theory, but it serves as a nice place for Bond to try to escape from the shark. I'll go ahead and follow him in there. Now, in the film, Bond has this big old fight in the hold of the ship with the shark. He's in there using a fire extinguisher to try and fight it off, and then he flees out up a hatch. Well, here's the inside as it exists today. There's not a whole lot left in here. This was not a particularly sturdy ship in the first place, and it's now been on the bottom of the ocean for something like 40 years, and it's kind of decrepit today. So, okay, so Bond is going to come back up a hatch onto the deck of the ship and tries to get away. This is where he's coming out. So that support bracing you can see at the top there, that's where the cabin originally was. Bond will see another shark and, oh no, he has to flee back into the cabin of the ship, where he has a bit of an extended fight sequence with the shark. We'll cut bits of it in here. Well, that open section right there is where the cabin was, and this is what remains of the cabin today. So after a bunch of storms, the cabin has completely fallen apart, and it's just in IKEA flat pack condition, lying off on the left side of the boat today. Now, eventually, Bond will get out of the cabin. He defeats the shark, and then he traps this shark by cutting down some of the mast and rigging onto it. That stuff is also pretty much long gone. This is about the last that I could find of any rigging or mast that survives on the ship, and it's just a little bit here, again, lying off the side of the ship. So kind of what you would expect for a wreck that's been underwater this long. It is neat what they used in the film, and it's really cool that you can actually see a bunch of elements. If you just dive this as a wreck, it's kind of cool, especially that you can easily penetrate into it, but you don't see a whole lot of interest. Well, if you've seen the movie and you recognize the scenes from the movie, it's a lot more interesting to me to be able to go down through that hatch where the actors and the film crew were originally working. You can see the doors. This is the area where that shark fight happened, but it's really hard to tell exactly what was what anymore. So that is the Tears of Allah, the shipwreck from Never Say Never Again. And if you're in Nassau, definitely worth a trip to dive down on it. Thanks for watching.